Jeremy Mask, President of I-35 Community School District Board. I am going to turn over the meeting to the Vice President, Roger Knoy, for this evening.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order tonight. Welcome everybody that has come to participate or listen to the meeting. First, we'll start off with a roll call. Roger, here.
Cindy, here.
Roll call, Jeremy.
Jeremy here.
We are missing Eddie and Sarah at this point. Next is the review of the I-35 mission statement and district priorities. The I-35 Community School District exists to develop lifelong learners, responsible, productive, successful citizens in an ever-changing society. The district priorities are to articulate and support a cohesive, student-centered, PK through 12 vision for continuous school improvement, engage in effective teaching and relevant learning for the 21st century, and operate with fiscal integrity, efficiency, and effectiveness. Did I miss? Where's the pledge? I missed the pledge here, so we'll go ahead and start with the pledge now. Sorry, I'm a rookie. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
I do have Sarah on here now, just so you're aware.
Sarah is here. Okay, great. Board members, we should have a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Entertain any comments or questions for that? If no comments or questions, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
They're looking for a second for the approval of the agenda, if either of you care to be a part of that.
I'll be the second. This is Sarah.
All right. Motion was moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda is approved. All right, we will start our public hearing on the fiscal year 2021-2022 school budget. At this point, we would start with introductory remarks. Is that?
So, yeah, I think Ted and I will do this together.
Yep.
We published the certified budget on March 10th of 2021. The proposed budget is actually published at a slightly higher rate, 18.8, and that can be adjusted down. We publish higher to allow for fluctuations in some of the accounts. In June, typically, the board will go in and adjust it down. So the tax levy will not increase unless there's something unforeseen, which we don't anticipate. But we tend to publish higher, but I anticipate in June it'll come back down. So no increase to the tax levy for this year.
Okay. So at this point, we will move into the public question and answer on the school budget. I see no questions on the school budget. All right. We will close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2021-2022 school budget. All right, next item is the open forum. Residents, students, parents, guardians, and staff members of the district may address the board about relevant topics. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speakers' presentations are limited to 5 minutes per meeting. We ask that speakers remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees or students or their performance. At this point, we have 2 people signed up to speak. Is there anybody else that didn't get a chance to sign up before the meeting? All right. We will start with Heather Jelsma.
I think if she comes up here, it's a little easier because there's a microphone. I would just have her go to stand by Steve's desk.
Yeah, maybe
because there's a
stand here by the copier, then there's a microphone that'll pick you up for the recording. Thank you.
Well, thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Heather Jelsma, and I have 4 boys in the I-35 school district. This year we opted to dual enroll. Just all the uncertainty of how the year was going to go, it just seemed really chaotic to me if I had to have my kids, one kid quarantining and the others in school and try and juggle Zoom meetings and all of that. But one of the biggest sticking points to me was the mask mandate. I understand, last year was kind of an anomaly. Hopefully we never have anything like that again. I understand, the trying to take precautions and being cautious and all of that, but just going forward into next year, sorry, this is kind of all over the place, but I did talk to a board member last year who said that they thought that if we had taken a survey, it would be about 50 people for masks, 50 people against masks. And, I get that, that's fine, but what about the 50% of us who were against masks, the mask mandate? I didn't feel like we were represented very well in the school this year. I'm not asking that masks go away, I'm just asking for a choice, some kind of compromise, something where my kids can, maybe put a mask on in the hallway, but when they get into their classroom, sit down and take it off so that they have a break. And I'm not talking like just 15-minute mask breaks. I'm talking take it off for the classroom instruction because, so much of our communication is nonverbal. It's not just the words we say. I talk with my hands, but it's your facial expressions. And kids need to learn this. They need to pick up on it. I know for myself when I'm walking through stores, I don't recognize people. If I see you in the store, I don't recognize you because I see your mask, that's all I see. I'm not looking at you, I'm not paying attention to your eyes. I just want to get this done and get out of there as quick as possible. And I don't want that to be the experience for my kids. I want my kids to connect with people. I want them to connect with teachers and with fellow students. We live in a society where connection is just, everything's online and people are losing that human connection, that personal touch, and I don't want them to lose it at school. So I really ask that you would consider not the blanket mask mandate for everyone all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. All right. Second one is Scott Williams. Scott?
My wife and I, we have 4 kids that are in the I-35 school district, and this year with the mask mandate coming in, we were okay with it at the beginning of the school year. We allowed it because it wasn't strictly enforced. Our kids had times where they weren't having to wear their masks all the time, but when it went to 100% masks, 100% of the time, we went ahead and chose to pull our kids out and put them in the remote learning portion. And we've had them full-time remote learning since. It's become evident to us that the remote learning is quite a bunch of garbage. I mean, our kids don't learn anything. They Google everything, they cheat. We try to keep them from doing it, but they don't understand the lessons, the disconnect from not being in the classroom. It's having devastating effects. I mean, my kids were A, B students, and now they're C to D, if they even care enough to do it. There's just a disconnect. My wife spends pretty much the whole day working with the kids every day to get them to do their lesson, try to get caught up. It's just frustrating, and I empathize with Heather because we're on the same boat where if the masks weren't full-time all the time, we would allow our kids to come back into the school and be a part of the school because they need that. And also, like she was talking, the nonverbal communications. I'm a person that non-verbally communicates with my wife more than I'd like to admit because she's always mad at me over something that just because of the look on my face, and the kids aren't getting that, they're not properly developing. And I'm sure any one of you teachers or the staff that's here, you see the students and it's just not right. The depression level in our kids, it's just, somebody has to stand up for our kids right now. I realize the state makes these mandates too, but the governor's lifted them some, but the administration has to step up for our kids. Otherwise, the education they're getting is complete bullcrap. They don't learn anything, so why even bother sending them here? Something has to be done for next year. Otherwise, we're looking at options that we're going to have to pull our kids out, homeschool or something. It's frustrating that it has to come to this. I understand there aren't very many parents here that are willing to stand up for their kids. They just go with the flow, whatever. Put your mask on, put your muzzle on, shut your mouth, do what you're told. There's too many people that are just willing to do that just so there's not grief. I mean, I caught my wife. She wants to go to the store doesn't have a mandate. I say, we've been healthy. Nobody in our house has been sick for a freaking year, and we don't wear masks. We keep the social distancing the best that we can, but it's not as bad as everybody's making it out to be. It's no worse than the flu. If you look back at December of 2019 in the school district when 3/4 of the kids were sick with the flu before the COVID happened, we didn't shut the schools down then. We didn't put the masks on then. But now, it's not the same. Something has to be done for our kids. The damage is too great. What is going on? And that's all I have to say today. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you, Scott. All right. That is the end of the open forum portion of the meeting. Next item is the Education Spotlight, which is the 6th grade live museum. They're coming in. All right.
So this will actually be an interactive portion, so we're going to encourage the board members to get up and walk around. You'll go to the exhibit, and they will all have a spot where you can push the button, and they will give you their information. So we'll let them get set up, and then we'll get to experience the live museum. This, I think Mrs. Peacock is coming in. This was one of the extension activities that the kids did. I'll let Mrs. Peacock explain a little more. Can you move up just a little bit closer? Thanks, Heather.
Yeah. So I'm Heather Peacock, 6th grade ELA teacher. I offered this extension project. We started the end of February and did all of March. They presented this the week before spring break to kindergarten through high school, whoever could come through their live museum day as an exhibit. And they've been researching people that have influenced their culture, or our culture today. So you're gonna see a lot of different people that they have done a lot of research on, and they've been here every Friday working on it. They've come in during open campus, open campus, Flag Fridays, and they've put a big poster board together and they dressed up as their character also. So give them just a couple minutes and then they'll be ready to go.
This is my story. My story goes, I was riding the bus back home after work. Later, a white man told me to get up from my seat before I said no. After work, I had to change that. I got arrested by the bus driver. Launched the Montgomery bus boycott. 17,000 black citizens.
February 7, 2005, who made a difference in this world. 1930 to 2005, born on October 17, 1956 in Decatur, Alabama. I've been on this week. I went to Wells Medical College. I'm 64 years old today. As the first African American to go to space. I made a very big impact for every African American in the United States to this day. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to go out to outer space, and that dream came true because I worked very hard for it to become a light.
Really good.
My name is Mahatma Gandhi, and I'm a Peace Report tester. I was also an Indian player. I was born October 2nd, 1869 in Fort Indian. When I was little, I liked playing outside with my 5 siblings. My education was in local schools. I went to UCL Faculty of Laws, Alfred High School, Samuel Doss Arts College, University of London, and the Honor Society in Tech. I also worked at Bombay, and I sent a job in South Africa. I was married to Castro Gandhi and had 4 kids. 10 interesting facts about Gandhi are: Gandhi's birthday is International Nonviolence Day. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 times, but never actually won. He was married at the age of 13. Gandhi is the father of Gandhi was assassinated on January 30th, 1948. He was very serious about it. He was 19th every time magazine made the news. More than 2 million people attended Gandhi's funeral. He lived in South Africa for 21 years and was sent there many times. It must be the change you see in the world his most famous quote. Another famous quote by Gandhi was, "An eye for an eye only ends up making the world blind." And the rulers of a nation can be judged by the way it's handled. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bessie Coleman. I was born on January 26th of 1892 in Atlanta, Texas. If I was still alive today, I'd be 94 and older. I lived with my brothers in Chicago. I went to beauty school before going to flight school. I was the first black woman to fly and get their pilot's license. I was best known for my stunt flying. I went to Waxahachie High School. When I was 12, I got into Missionary Baptist Church School for my scholarship. I also went to Oklahoma Color Agriculture and Lansing University. I went to Lee Croatoy Flying School. My family was big. I was one of 13 siblings. My parents were Susan and George Coleman. This is my flying papers. There's 10 to 11.
Staying with them for some odd reason. Breaking news, welcome back. We've sadly lost a brave pilot, Bessie Coleman, in Jacksonville, Florida at the age of 34. She died in an accident plane crash with her mechanic, William Will. She fell out of the plane 3,000 feet in the air. In loving memory, Elizabeth Bessie Coleman.
Gandhi's birthday is
I don't know where Steve went.
Thank you for letting us come and present, and we had a lot of fun. I think it was fun.
Yeah. Can you guys just tell us what your names are real quick before you go?
I'm Zoe.
Hi, I'm Kira.
I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Macy.
I'm Elise.
I'm Danica. Bailey.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Great job. All right. That's going to be hard to follow, Steve, but the next one's the student representative report. Are you covering that?
I got Will's report. I'm just going to kind of combine his report and my report.
Okay.
Just because when he sent me his report, it and my report cover a lot of the same things, but I do have a standalone in here for him. But just secondary building report, hiring we're in the middle of that right now. We've got two teaching positions and an interventionist position currently open still. We've hired for PE and Ag both already, so those are 2 that we have finished and then recommended hired for those. Parent-teacher conferences were March 8th and 11th for the entire district. Overall attendance or percentage of attendance for the secondary was 14.6%. So I think that's one of those things that we talk about on a yearly basis is that something that we want to continue with? Are there other options for us to be able to communicate out as far as teacher conferences or meeting with parents? Because that number is that's a fairly low number for the amount of time, that 8 hours that we spend over the 2 days here. So I do think, we talk about this on a regular basis, but between Power School and teachers communicating home and other means of communication, we try to be proactive, and so that number tells me that we are being fairly proactive. But we still have parents that come in the building and value that as well. So just continue to evaluate whether that's a good use of our time and parents' time as well. Student events, this is one that Will and I overlapped quite a bit on. We've got prom coming up April 10th. The prom committee has been working with Madison County Public Health to make sure that we can operate a good, safe event, and as of now we're on as scheduled, and with their guidelines of masking and social distancing when we can. It is a school-sponsored event, so that is something that will be expected for kids when they're there at the event. But I think the kids are very thankful that we are planning and moving forward with that. That's something they're looking forward to. But they're working closely with Madison County to plan that a safe event for everybody. ISASP's week of April. I have week of April 12th. Is that the right week for that? It's either the 12th or the 19th. I couldn't remember which.
It starts on the 12th.
Yeah, so we were ready for, used to be Iowa assessments, but they're now called the ISASP, which Tina's planning all the stuff on the back end for that week, and students and teachers will administer those during the week of April 12th. Graduation scheduled for the week of May 23rd, so that'd be Sunday, May 23rd. We've not met formally with the seniors yet to talk through what that process will look like, but we have, Tiffany is our senior class sponsor, and so her and I have talked about planning an outdoor graduation with the tentative plan of an indoor if we need to, and then just figuring out what we planned from last year that worked well and we'd like to continue to keep, and how we can keep some of those things in place, because I think there were things that we did last year that were really good and we'd like to keep tradition-wise. We've gotten a lot of comments about the video that was put together and the pictures that were taken of the graduates before. I think the yearbook kids are pushing right now for at least keeping the picture portion, because if you've not seen this year's yearbook portion or last year's yearbook of the graduates, it's really a nice spread of all of the graduates recognized with their classmates. So we will continue to plan that and share details and get details from the kids as we get a little closer to that date. Student Council has planned a couple really fun events here of recent, but their most recent was the Music March Madness, which was a hit for the students. They could request songs or pay money to request song, and then if you didn't like that song, you could pay more money to stop that song. That became very, very fun and entertaining in the morning. So it was a little chaotic during advisory time, but I think everybody enjoyed it. They've also got upcoming. They're planning an Easter egg hunt down in the elementary with the elementary students. So they're coordinating that with Mr. Tessa and his crew down there. Additional things that Will had to add was we made an adjustment to our hats in the building. We had talked last Friday at our PD day, and that was just something that only seemed like only a few were chasing as far as patrolling students with hats. So told the staff last Friday, sent an email out to students today and let them know, the neutral spaces, hallway, commons area, if a kid wants to wear a hat when they're in the building, they can do so. If they're in the classroom, they would need to abide by whatever the expectation is set for by the teacher. And so Will had shared that was something that the kids really enjoyed and were appreciative of. So that was good feedback from him on that. Spring cleaning projects in preparation. I have no idea what he's referring to there. So do you know anything about that, Sharon?
I don't.
Yeah, could be a surprise from Will. I'm not sure if he's taking up spring cleaning as a hobby or not, but we'll find out from him. NHS did a scrapbooking fundraiser. That's something they've done annually, and talked about it being a success as well. And then, just having fun, making the most of what's left of the school year, because we are getting towards the tail end of the school year, so want to finish on a high note for the year. That was Will's report. Last couple things that I had planning for 21-22 school year. We've done a lot of work with the BLT. We've met a couple different times and talked about how we can differentiate the planning between the high school and middle school. We've really talked about how to establish measurable building goals and what that looks like for us in the next school year. So not just schedule, but what are those goals so that we can gather feedback on a regular basis and then as well report out our progress towards or not towards those goals. And then the last piece, which has been something we've had a few years in the coming, but that's the implementation of standards-based grading. So I've got just a little bit of a timeline here. Did you share that out with the board
did.
members?
Yeah, it's, well, I think I did. I'll put it up on the screen.
Sure.
Maybe I didn't.
I don't, it wasn't part of the agenda.
Did I put it in the folder? Let me just
I didn't
double
look
check
at a folder.
before I say anything.
I didn't look at a folder. So.
Okay.
I don't recall seeing it.
Okay, let me just pull up his email and I will get that to
Okay.
all of you, and then we can pull it up as well.
Steve, while she's pulling that up for
Sure.
outdoor graduation, that you guys, is that something the student council's helping plan, or who really works with that with you to plan that?
Well, traditionally it's just been Tiffany and myself, but there's not been a lot of change in my time other than up through last year.
Okay.
And so we'll actually hold a meeting with the senior class, the entire senior class. We'll talk about what we're thinking, and make it a very tentative conversation, but try and get some feedback from them on whether that's something they want to do or not want to do. We talked about the auditorium a couple years ago, for when the auditorium was ready to go, but that would have been last year, and the kids had said they would prefer to do it in the gym. I think the outdoor portion just allows for additional spacing. So if you got to, what I'll share with the kids is they've got to weigh out what they want to have as a priority. Do they want to have unlimited number of people there and be able to spread out and not have to worry about that? Or would they rather have something that may be slightly more restricted and be indoors? Because I think you would be restricted indoors, whereas outdoors you wouldn't be.
Okay.
But we'll gather feedback from the kids on that, and it truly is a day for them. So we'll want to make it as close to what we can be, as close to what they want as possible.
Trying to buy you time, Sharon.
That's okay. I don't think you sent it in an email now that I think about it. I think you shared it with me, so I'll get there. Thank you.
Want me to share it again quick?
You could, probably be easier, but. Because some people send it and they automatically send me an email with it in there, and sometimes it just pops up in my, I found it.
Steve, when was that happening on 10 Fest?
Today. Yeah.
So have the kids been respectful about it? If teachers say, please don't wear that? Or?
I did not hear any feedback from staff today. I don't think within the classroom wasn't the issue. I think they were being respectful within the classroom if a teacher did ask them to take it off. The issue was keeping them off when they were in the hallways, or the commons, or in the lunchroom, or wherever they were. And I think that's just there weren't enough people in those spaces to make that happen. And so for myself or a couple others to patrol that, it became an impossible task. I shared with the staff last Friday. I think I had 10 or 12 hats the one day in my office, and it's like, what are we doing? I mean, I just wasting my time. But that was kind of the piece that I said, enough's enough.
Be respectful of it.
Yes. Yep. And I included that in my email out to the kids today. It was, please be respectful, but understand that if a teacher asks and you're not compliant, then obviously they can send you to the office if they need to, as they would with any other, and take the privilege away. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So here's a timeline of the last couple years and our progression towards what our work has been when it comes to standards-based grading. I'm going to share my screen with you guys at home here so that you can see I'm assuming you guys can let me know if you can't see that, Jeremy and Sarah. So in 2017, we started the conversations around, in our professional development around standards-based grading, that really focused on establishing power standards within your curricular areas. That was a very general approach because we had begun talking about some inconsistencies within the grade book and what that looked like. So that led us to having a conversation towards the end of the school year, and then we met in June regarding what we had called our 80-20 policy. 80% of our grade was based on assessment, 20% of our grade was based on homework. There were, I don't know, 8 or 10, I don't remember now, staff members that were at that meeting that were a part of generating what the ins and outs were. It was sent out to the entire staff, and then adjustments were made for that fall to begin implementing that grading practice. So some of the question around that was, why did we make that step? Well, we had to start somewhere with our grading practice because there really was not consistency between classrooms. So there were one classroom would have 1,000 points within a semester, and one would have 100. And so just being able to navigate that as a student, let alone as a parent, was challenging. So we wanted to streamline that process and create a common practice amongst the building. So that's where we started, with the thought that our 80% was based on assessment and 20% homework, meaning that our assessments were really where the value was in knowing the student understanding of the standard. So we move into the 18-19 school year, which is where that was very first implemented. We started that in the fall, obviously, and then carried it out through the last 2 school years, and even into the beginning of this year, we have carried on with that policy. But grade books are default setup for teachers, so it's not something that they set up themselves. They categorize by assessment or by daily work or homework within their grade book. So we began then taking a more focused approach towards power standards, which are within the identified standards from the state. You're going to select those standards that are your takeaways, your must-haves. Not that you don't teach the other standards, but what are we going to hang our hat on, the 6 or 8 things throughout the semester that when a student walks away from a class, they have an understanding of what that power standard is. And so we started working on that that school year in 18-19. We did gather feedback from staff in November that year on the implementation of the grading policy, and then provided, we just made adjustments to, as we do with most of our practices, make adjustments, gather feedback, make adjustments. So that helped us create a better practice in that school year. The 19-20 school year, again, we shifted not away from power standards because that's really been the main focus for the last couple years, but more on the real process. And I'm not going to remember the acronym. Do you remember it off the top of your head?
Yeah, relevant, enduring, assessment, meaning is it assessed someplace other than just in that one classroom, and kind of longevity beyond just the classroom.
Yeah, so that created a tool by which we could sort through our standards and make sure that we've identified, one, the standards that we really wanted to get at, but evaluate standards we've looked at in the past and then adjust for years upcoming. But again, just creating a process for everyone to go through for all of their standards and make sure they are properly vetted before we put them into practice. In the spring, we had discussed focus groups to look at various areas. One of those areas was grading, and specifically the area of standards-based. We began meeting with Dr. Matt Townsley and working through what that looks like or could look like for our school district. Dr. Townsley is a professor at UNI who specializes in standards-based practice and has been somebody who has done it in the classroom and overseen it as an administrator, and now continues to teach to that area within the college level. So there was a group that came and met with that focus group. I think there were, again, 6 or 8 of us in that room that we met and worked through what standards-based practice could look like for us or would look like for us, and so ultimately created a policy in which that we hope to have implemented at the beginning of this year, but obviously with the pandemic, and we've pushed that back to allow teachers some additional time to get their heads around what that practice is or could look like within their own day-to-day classroom. Which again leads us into this school year. So that happened in June, July, first part of August this last year. Again, had intended for that to be in May when people were still in school, but with everything happening last spring, it was pushed back into the first part of August. So we decided to slow down there just a little bit, and then begin working this year with the AEA on a pilot group, in which we've done with the English team this semester is implement the standards-based practice. We continue to get feedback and adjust and change within that. We had another great meeting today with the gal from the AEA who has helped us through that practice, and again just continuing to refine so that when we're ready to roll this to all staff, we've kind of worked out some of the bugs or the kinks in what that looks like for us as we transition to next school year. So upcoming steps within that practice is that we continue to seek support from the AEA. We know that we are going to be in need of some video tutorials or rollout tools, communication tools to parents and community members as to why we're doing what we're doing, and then how to evaluate what that looks like and how it may or may not affect students when it comes to the next phases of their life. So college transcripts or GPAs or whatever that might look like for them as they are looking beyond school. That was a lot. I apologize for taking up that much time, but I wanted to make sure. Here's that current practice. Maybe, and I can share that with you guys as well. But for you guys to see at home, Sharon, if you click on, scroll down just a little bit, right there, final policy was created. That one right there. So this was the piece that was created by the focus group in August. So it very much defines the principles of the grading, the purpose of the grading practice, and then down below gives the descriptors and the scales of what that practice would be.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here that I need to step back. So this Power Standards has a 1 through 4 scale.
Well, the standards-based grading practice would have a 1 through 4 scale.
Okay. So we are currently piloting for English.
Yep.
I'm going to take Owen for example, because he's in English 9.
Yep.
So as of today, March, where are we?
22nd.
22nd. So I don't know what. I mean, I can go into Power School and drill down into whether, it's that scale there.
Yep.
But I don't know what it's equivalent to, what we're used to seeing, whether a student has an A all the way down to an F. I don't know the equivalent to that. And then taking it a step further, I mean, we only have a month and a half left before school ends.
Sure.
How are we converting it into a GPA, especially for, the freshmen coming in, we're always telling them, start off good, make sure you stay on top of your grades. So how would they know where they're at? And then plus, not only the freshmen, but of course the juniors and seniors who are very concerned about their GPA with whether it's scholarships, or secondary, post-secondary education. And I'm sure parents want to know because, every day I get this, but I have no idea where he's at or what it's equivalent to.
Yep.
And who's who's going to do that conversion?
Well,
When will that happen? And then,
hold on. Do you want to finish, or do you want me to answer questions as you go?
go ahead.
You'll have a letter grade on Thursday because that was part of our meeting today. Power School does that conversion for us, but we had to have it set up on the back end. We specifically did not put a letter grade in prior to now, partly because we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was able to track, and it has been. So that letter grade conversion is going to happen. That English 10, for example, was just our pilot group that we picked today. Now has letter grades within the one class that we set that up for. We plan to meet with the ELA group you meet Thursday, right? So Julie and Heather and myself will be in on Thursday morning to help have them finalize those settings within their courses. So for this year, it will transfer whatever that score is within the standard to a letter grade so that it plays nicely with first semester. As we move into next school year, that's where we talk about how we've got it's a full shift in thinking when it comes to what grades represent, because to say you have a full understanding of concepts in algebra, well, what does that mean? Because you had an A, at least with the standards, you'll be able to say, okay, I can apply this concept and here's how I demonstrated that throughout the year, rather than I turned something in because I needed 2 extra points so that I could get a B, not a C+. So it really separates the learning and understanding from the completion of task.
So, if it's a pilot, why did we choose to include high school at this point? I mean, if it's a pilot, why don't we just stick with middle school where we can still, they can, I guess, get used to it and then we can work out the kinks with it, rather than throwing all the high school into it right now where it's affecting things.
So at what point do you ever make that switch if you don't run the pilot simultaneously? Because that question would always linger from year to year. And I would say we chose the English department because they were working through Understand by Design, which lends itself very nicely to working through standards and measurement of those standards.
So next year, 2021, are we going to this for all the classes, to this type of grading scale?
That's the goal.
To all the classes? Are all the Iowa schools going to it, most of them? And how are they doing their conversion?
Sure. I don't know what the statistic is of standards-based schools in the state of Iowa, but it's becoming more and more on a regular basis. I think the pandemic has expedited that conversation because we really kind of dug through and decided what has to be measured to get us to the end of last school year, and then as well at the beginning of this school year. So how do we look at what has to be measured and peel that back? And again, it got rid of a lot of the what are we doing to eat up time rather than show our understanding of learning. I don't know what the next question was. Remind me.
Just about how are the other schools converting it? Like say take for example the English. You have maybe 5 areas you want to concentrate on. I mean, you have a whole slew of what you want to do, but maybe 5 areas you want to make sure that through the school year that the kids are competent in that and know, or they know that there's a good understanding of it. So maybe there's a 4 here, a 3 here. How, I guess, if you have a couple of 2s and a 1, how did they convert that? And are we taking a look at that and saying, okay, yeah, this one's got a good example of that? Is that how it's being done?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I think most of them are using Power School to convert it, or I don't know if Infinite Campus has the same thing. It's their student information system. I don't know that they have a special program to convert that they've created. Okay. But we can ask the AEA about that because she works with school districts across the state.
You're talking in how you take this and convert it to a letter grade?
Yes.
Most aren't. From what she told me today, they're reporting out whatever their standard score is in terms of a GPA, and so it doesn't ever transfer back to an A, B, C, D, or an F. But again, I'm not that far into it to know what that looks like. But so Waukee is a standards-based school, and they use Power School. So I'll be in touch with them to figure out what their transcripts look like, and that's much of that conversion piece is done through Power School. It's just we set it up, and it does its magic on the back end. So it wouldn't be a hand conversion of any sort.
And then, when we're lasering in as far as certain, what we call power standards, of what we want the students to learn and to be efficient in and master, I guess, is that in line with, say, ACTs and SAT tests that are questions that are expected to come up? I mean, you're choosing what you're teaching them, right?
The teachers are.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. So does that coincide with in the English section of an ACT test, or in the science section, or the math section?
I can address that a little bit. So the power standards are based on the Iowa Core. So we're required by law to teach the Iowa Core in a grade span. So 9th through 12th grade, 9th, 10th grade English have to teach this set of standards. 11, 12 have to teach this set of standards. So we've gone through and delineated and say, okay, if 9th grade is teaching this as a power standard, so kids have it mastered, then 10th grade does not have to master it because they should already come in with it. They could focus on this. I don't know. I mean, there is some conversion, but to say that Iowa went with Iowa Core and compared it to ACT, I would say the answer to that is no. So the Common Core, Iowa Core kind of stemmed from the same place, but the ACT did not factor into that. So I think that's one of the challenges, is that measure for the ACT, the entrance to college. In theory, if you've mastered the Iowa Core, you should do well on the ACT. Now, the Iowa Core has been aligned to the ISASP. So the test that we give each year from the state Iowa assessment, that has been aligned. So we should see after a grade span, so 5th through 8th grade, our kids should be proficient on Iowa assessments based on what they're being taught for mastery at each grade level. But to say that it's been done with the ACT, no. Now, the advantage is ACT is created by the same group that creates the ISASP, so you'd like to think that there's a little bit of conversation, but it has not been aligned directly.
Have you heard feedback from other schools as far as how this is going for them?
Well, I think it's a different set of feedback in every. I think the feedback is different everywhere. The question is how do you gather feedback and how do you apply that to make your practice better? I think the value for standards-based comes from the amount of feedback that's provided to a kid to help them better understand. It also translates to allowing parents to be more involved in their kids' education because there's explanation as to why they didn't master a certain standard, or maybe they have mastered, and then we can talk about how to apply that standard to something beyond the classroom, which is where the true value comes into to knowing, the takeaway for a kid.
Have you received a lot of questions from parents regarding this new standard grading?
Yeah, not a lot. I have received some feedback from a few. I've met with 3 or 4 of them, and we have a conversation very similar to how we're having right now. But I think that's every one of them I've asked, can I follow back up with you to get more feedback? Because I think that's again where we just make ourselves stronger to building what we do.
I mean, I think this is so huge. I don't know if parents understand how big it is and how much of a change it is. And, I don't know if it's something that is, I don't know what the right answer is whether there is a separate discussion or before the next school year when we're implementing all of this so that parents understand the details of this. I mean, I'd be the first to admit I didn't understand the enormity of this, of the changes with the 1 through 4 scale and how it, how it changes where we're not talking about A through F and whether, we're exceeding standards or below standards and making sure that there's certain power standards that are taught and understood and mastered. I really didn't grasp that. I just kind of took it as some different type of grading scale, simply as that. So I just don't know if it's, if parents really understand about this whole thing. And I don't know if there needs to be more education on it. I don't know.
So I guess from what I'm hearing and seeing, and I'm probably in the same boat as Cindy is, I'm trying to play catch up with it. I probably didn't pay as close enough attention to the email you sent out earlier in the year, everything like that, because none of those changes became real to me until you start seeing this stuff. Our administrative team, you guys have been working on this for 4 years, and now all of a sudden it's becoming real to students and parents, and we've got to make sure that there's an understanding. So I just want to make sure, I'm going to say what I thought I heard, is this year you're going to do a conversion to the ABCD scale for English that was used as a pilot.
Yep.
When it goes into next year, we will no longer see any letter grades. It'll all just be number grades. And those number grades will convert into a GPA.
Yep.
So that GPA, we'll see that at the same reporting interval as we currently see it. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate, yeah.
Okay.
Well, to some extent, because depending on how assignments are put in or the pace that somebody works through in a class, that might look a little different because there could take a little more time with a project or whatever the case might be. Because really, it's about the progression towards mastery. So if maybe you work on a standard at the beginning of the semester and you circle back to that standard. You don't show it at the beginning, but you do at the end. Again, it's about the learning or the being able to show your learning or understanding of that standard. So
is there a theory that the second week of school, no student should be at a 4 unless they're way ahead of the curve, and they're eventually working their way towards a 4, or along the way they learned what was taught in the first 2 weeks, they've mastered that, and then they're continuing on? I'm trying to look at it from a parent's perspective of how do I know if when my student's at a 3, if they're applying themselves 100% what would be traditionally equivalent to an A. You follow what I'm asking?
I think that's we're getting into the theory of things, and we can go into that if this is the longest board report in the history of Earth. But so the idea is, let me make sure I understand your question. Where a student is in their practice and how that translates to what is current. Is that how you said that?
So
Can I think I understood.
Yes.
So if I
Okay,
can
go.
address
Yes.
then maybe you can jump in. Similar to what we do in elementary, you're not going to have an opportunity to show mastery of all the standards until you're assessed on them. So you might be learning standard 1 and have 3 or 4 substandards in the first 2 weeks of school. And let's say that you're on top of it, right? You read over the summer and you're great, you got everything going on. You can show mastery in that first assessment, or above, right? So a 3 or a 4, you can also show a 2 or a 1. But the nice thing, I think, about standards-based grading is it tells a student exactly what skill they need to work on if they're not where they want to be. So similar to in elementary, there'll be times when you'll get a report card and it'll say not assessed because they haven't had the opportunity to show mastery of it yet. So at the beginning of the year, whatever their first unit is, there'll probably be 2 or 3 power standards that they're introducing for mastery. And then as they give assessments for that, you'll be able to see progress towards those. But there'll be several that they won't have access to until later in the semester when it's actually taught for mastery.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me.
I think one of the shifts in thinking with standards-based is that, that what does an A represent? You know, in here within this grading scale, a 4 is above and beyond, if you will, what that you can show application beyond just the classroom. Whereas before the goal was to get an A within the class, and maybe a 3 does represent an A minus, but when it comes to a 3 is you show your understanding. You can do what you're asked to do, and you can apply it to whatever the task might be. So that to me would be average. Or if you want to be above average, you take that concept and you can apply it in a different setting within a different realm beyond just that one given assignment. So not to say that it's okay with being average, but to me a 3 would be a B in a classroom. That's your average place. So the push from a parent standpoint would be, if being above average is what you want to help your child be, then that's the conversation to have. How can we take this standard and apply it elsewhere to help your teacher know that you can take what you've learned and apply it in a different light.
So at what point do you determine intervention? Everyone that gets a 1 and a 2?
I think that's part of our BAT team process to work through, because I think we struggle at determining intervention now, and we have struggled for a while. So I mean, do you do that at a D because that's passing, or do you do it to everybody that's 59% or below because that's failing? I mean, I think that's always the moving needle.
Okay.
Do you think there will be more discussion about this before the fall school year begins
I think that there's going to be parent meetings, communications. That's what I think Steve was alluding to with the AEA. They've created some videos already for parents, but also having parent meetings where parents can come in and we can walk through what this is, have the teachers give feedback, but I think, as Steve said, this is kind of an ongoing evolution. And I'm impressed that we're working with Dr. Townsley from UNI. I mean, if there's anybody in the country that knows standards-based grading, it's Dr. Townsley. He was at Solon before he went to UNI, and he's actually lived it. So, when you talk about best practice, instead of, working for a point, you're working for knowledge. It's just a shift. And I think that you're exactly right. If parents don't know how to support their kids, how to even read it, it makes it really hard to have that conversation and be supportive of it. So we've even talked about this spring having some parent nights and having parents come in, ask their questions, get a frequently asked questions sheet out, just doing a little bit more of that communication, because until we hear what their questions are, we live this, it's a little different. So I think this feedback helps Steve go back to his team and say, okay, here's what the questions were, how can we get this out to people?
We won't start next school year not knowing what this looks like on a transcript or a grade report, if you will, at the end of the year. That will be known before we start next school year. So yes, we're working through our pilot to help with the day-to-day operations. We'll get to the end of the semester. We know now how to make it work right for this school year. We will have those pieces worked out for what it looks like at semester or those grading terms for next year. So that we won't start the year in a pilot, if you will. I mean, kind of, but we'll have at least an understanding of what that looks like for students at the end of the year before the year starts. Because I think that's the education piece, as Sharon talked about, for parents and kids before school starts that's necessary. You bet.
And I would just say, parents who are watching, board members, if you guys think of questions or you have people send you questions about it, things that they're specifically asking about, please forward those on to Steve.
Yeah.
Because the more we know about what's confusing or what's not out there, the more he can communicate that in maybe different media forms so that we can get that information out there.
Yeah, and be prepared for questions back, because I enjoy hearing from because although I'm a parent as well, I'm learning this as we go also, and so I'm interested to know, but I live it every day, so I don't always see the things that you see, so I need to see it from your perspective as well.
Well, thanks for discussing this with us. I do appreciate it. It helped me a lot understand it better. Maybe it's
You bet.
it's probably stuff I should have understood before. Maybe by reading your 3-page email you sent out previously. But it is what it is.
It was really long. I sent it. But a lot of what you're going to have or has been shared with you in that timeline, there's hyperlinks in there, so you have access to all of that. That'll give you you can almost follow along what we've done chronologically and get as deep into it as you want or as little. But if you have questions about that, don't be afraid to let me know.
Good.
I just learn easier from, just this discussion and someone really just showing me.
Yep.
Just too many words. I just kind of
Just let me see it. I get it.
shut down.
Yep.
Anything else on your report, Mr. Tess?
No, I'm done.
Are you sure?
I'm done. Thank you for asking.
Did you cover Mr. Tessaw's as well?
If he can top that time, I'll be thoroughly impressed tonight.
That's not a challenge.
That is not a challenge.
A lot of stuff that I have, similar things as what Steve had, but we'll kind of go through the same stuff this time of year. Conferences, like he said a couple weeks ago, our conference attendance was right around 98%. Mix of in-person and remote. I didn't break it down into which one was which, but if I had to guess, about 50-50. The 2% that weren't represented, the teachers do reach out to those and either set up a different meeting or just communicate via email. But there's no one that we don't reach out to unless for some reason we just can't get a hold of someone. Book fair happened during the conference. I had all the stats pulled up on my computer, but the last part went so long my battery died. So I kind of remember some of them by hand or through my head. According to Mrs. Finley, the book fair in the fall was a little weaker than it has been in the past, which was understandable. But said that this spring book fair ranked up with some of the highest that we've had. She was blown away by the stats. I believe over 5,200 in sales. Again, if I'm remembering these off my head.
56.45.
Okay, yep. See, my memory's not that good. $2,800 is what that value is to our elementary, and that directly, the book fair is our elementary library budget, basically, as far as supplying books for the library and keeping a fresh supply coming in. So that's huge, and generally, again, we do 2 of those a year, so if we can double that number, that's a pretty healthy number for our book fair. Another record that she hit was 102 books that were bought by parents just from teachers' wish lists. If you stepped foot in the book fair in the last couple of years, they have bins for each teacher, and as the teachers go through the book fair, they'll pick out books that they like and would like to have in their classroom, and they'll set those in those wish list buckets. And as parents are coming through the book fair, some of them will grab a book or 2 from those wish lists and go ahead and buy them, and then Amanda sets them aside to give to that teacher. So 102 books were bought specifically by parents to go directly back in the hands of kids in the classroom. And that was, I think she said it was either a record or right up there, the highest that she's seen. So that's amazing. So I want to thank all the parents and teachers and everyone else who supported our library through attending the book fair and buying those books. It's always nice when kids are excited to get stuff, and it's even better when those things are books. So that was a big deal. Hiring season, again, we're in the middle of that. Much to Steve's chagrin, most of mine were filled by internal transfer. Shuffling, I think I only stole 1 of yours though this year. As of right now, I have no direct openings just for the elementary. We do have TAG that is a K-12 position that we'll be filling. I think we had, in the report up here, we got a couple transfers and then a special ed teacher that were hired. So, working with Madison County Emergency Management, they're wanting to do a presentation to our elementary for emergency service preparedness. They'll be coming in, I believe, on Friday to present to our 1st through 4th graders just some emergency planning processes. So that's something that they're putting together for us. Steve mentioned the Easter egg hunt that's coming up through the student council, which if it's anything like the Halloween activities that they did, it will be very well received. The Halloween went over amazingly well, and we're looking forward to doing something again. St. Steve BLT is working on planning for next year, what that will look like as far as schedules. Right now we have our intervention time done. It's staggered where some of the grades are doing it in the morning, some are doing it in the afternoon, and what we call our win time at the beginning and the end of the day. Evaluating if that time is effective, and if we don't do it that way, how will we do our intervention time, and still provide teachers with collaboration time. So we have weekly meetings from now through the end of the year to get that solidified and buttoned up, so we're ready to go. And finally, from a different note, the spring play is coming up April 2nd and 3rd in the auditorium. So we'll be pushing that out on Facebook and stuff like that to make sure that people are aware of it. And so it's not quite as technical of a play as last spring, but we wanted to make sure it was something that even if our guidance changed, we would still be able to do it. So meeting all the distancing guidelines and whatnot.
So just kind of a quick question for you, Mr. Tessa. Rumor has it that you had made a dare or a challenge with your students about reading goal.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I touched on it a couple times throughout the course of the school year, the Read Across America goal, which at the beginning of the year we set a lofty goal, not incredibly lofty. We've met the goal every year for the last few years, but 10,000 books by March 2nd, I believe it was this year. It kind of aligns with Read Across America, Dr. Seuss Day. 10,000 books read by the kids, and if they met that goal, I get to sleep on the roof. So the kids met the goal, so I've got to check at home to see what I've got for a tent, because I don't think I can park my camper up there. And I got to find a flat spot on the roof, because our whole elementary has sloped roofs. But once it warms up,
come on. Let the kids pick the day.
You can borrow Mr. Tessa.
You can look for me on the roof. So
Say that again, Jeremy.
I have a very nice tent he's welcome to borrow.
That would be great.
Found a
I think the only one I have requires stakes, and I don't think Rick would appreciate if I found stakes through the rubber roof.
Sounds like we do it over the wrestling room.
I get lunchtime, yeah.
All right.
Second part of that goal is if they hit 13,000 by the end of the year, someone promised to spend $1,000 from her own wallet and buy extra books for the students. So
I heard we're close, so that's exciting.
All right.
Grease up that checkbook.
Yep, that's all right. I'll tell Lee D he can't eat for a couple days. It's okay.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
All right, Superintendent Report.
So just a few updates here. Survey data, we sent out a survey to parents. I would encourage any parents who have not had an opportunity to provide feedback. We're going to close that tomorrow. This is on our implementation of our Return to Learn plan. So some of the schedule changes, some of the hygiene, health and hygiene practices that we put in place. So that will close tomorrow at the end of the day. So parents, if you could get that information in there for me, that'd be great. We will compile that as an admin team, and then I'll share that out prior to our next meeting with you so that you have a little bit of time to digest that, because there's a lot in there. We asked parents, we asked teachers, we asked staff members, and we asked students. Some of the same questions, but some of them were different, obviously, depending on the audience. So I'll get that to you guys probably within the next 2 weeks, and then we can have some rich discussion, hopefully at our April meeting around that data.
Great.
Steve talked about the ISASP test is already scheduled for April 12th. Students who are learning remotely will come into the building on that Friday to take it. So hopefully those will all be done in a timely fashion. Exciting news, we got the Child Care Grant Award, close to $80,000, I think it was $78,000, to update, renovate, kind of create a healthy space for our daycare. So we have the brick wall that's on the roof in the elementary. It causes leaking into the daycare classroom, so we wrote the grant to get that removed and then to get age-appropriate materials for additional classrooms for both summer school and for after school care, primarily for our upper grades, our K through 6. And then also we put in there air conditioning a few more classrooms so that they can have a space to spread out in the summer if we have to social distance and still do all those things. So that was approved. It was supposed to be a match funding grant, but they worked it out and they actually are going to give us the whole amount. So that was exciting. We had an update from Fema. There's been some information that's going out, and Ted, you might have to help explain this a little bit. We submitted about $26,000 worth of expenses, PPE, fogging machines, all those things to kind of help us get the school year started, end last year, begin this year. I don't know that a lot of school districts took advantage of that. Ted learned a lot. We submitted our grants. Our understanding is that will be approved, but they're not going to honor other school districts from here on out. And I think that probably comes from a lot of the CARES money that schools are getting to help with that offset. But we had already submitted ours in September, I want to say, October, somewhere around there.
The cutoff is September 15th for when they would accept the supplies to be purchased.
And are you're expecting the whole 26K?
We're expecting the whole. We're expecting the whole amount.
Wow.
Last we had heard, so that's I think good.
That's great.
Taking advantage of some of the resources that were made available to us in the fall. I wanted to give a quick update on 100% learning because we did have a rich discussion about that at the board table. As of today, we have 18 students in 5 through 12 that are here for 100% learning. So those are students that parents have signed up. Several of them, and without giving numbers, are students who are on an IEP or special ed, so they get to come in and work with their teachers specifically for the day. So that's, I think, an extra benefit for that. And then we also have some students that are coming in and doing some core instruction with teachers. Now it is still designed that students can opt to choose a class if they're struggling, or if they want to come and they're not on, they're not in the 100% in-person learning, they can still come and still be a part of that day as many days as they want to. So I did want to provide an update on the conversation around online learning. We've talked about that and what is it going to look like for next year. I think the gentleman that was here earlier attested to, we've done what we could this year to kind of get through, knowing that we were having kids come in and go out, and what does that look like, but it's not sustainable. I met with all the teachers at the round tables, and we can't do it like that. So I had Lori Jordan go in and print off, I think there's about 14 school districts in Iowa that are providing an online academy. So I had her print off all the handbooks, and Natasha Cooper and I last week spent the week going through and looking at services, looking at what the pros were, what the cons were. We actually have a virtual learning task force committee that's going to meet this Thursday to talk about the possibility. I know we've talked about obviously our focus here is all kids in the building 100% of the time. And I think the conversation will look a little different for next year about what does it look like if we still have to quarantine kids. I'd like to think as more people get vaccinations that guidance will change for schools. It hasn't yet, but I'm hopefully optimistic maybe that it will by the time we get going again in the fall. But I do think that there's some things that a virtual learning opportunity really do merit conversations around, but I also know that there are some drawbacks. So we want to be able to present that information to you in April. So that committee is going to work over the next 3 weeks and kind of scour through and see if it's something that we think is feasible and what it would look like and how it would be incorporate it into the things that we have as our mission and not take away from what we do here. So I'll let you guys hear more about that in April. And then I also wanted to just spend a minute, and I'm going to pull up an email here real quick, so bear with me. A week or so ago, we had a donation from a family for our family consumer science. This family was a friend of Mary Seibert. I think that she was in school with the daughter. I want to say she maybe was a college roommate of the daughter of this family. And she, the parents, one of them passed away and the other one is not in good health, but they used to run a catering service. And so they donated what we estimated was over $500 worth of supplies, tools, machinery, pots, just whatever you can think of to our family consumer science program. So I wanted to just make sure you were aware. I think we have a lot of people that do a lot of things for our schools, and I think that the more we can recognize that and make sure they know we are very, very appreciative of what these kids are going to be able to do with that, I think the better off we are. So let me pull that up real quick because I don't want to give you the wrong name. Usually I don't have to multitask like this. Dorothy, so it's James and Dorothy Vanderpool. And I will send them a note thanking them, of course, but I just think it's important. Their daughter was a teacher for years, it looks like, in the Des Moines Public School, but their estate kind of donated this equipment to the school district, and I know Heidi Boyd, our culinary science teacher, is very, very happy with that, and I just think it's important that we know that and recognize that. So
that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right.
Unless you have questions.
If no questions, we'll move on to the consent items. The consent agenda items include the past meeting minutes that were in your board packet, monthly bills and financial statement that are linked here in open enrollment list, which we did have a few this month, and then resignations, hires and resignations. The first one in that list is removed. That's not going to happen. Number 2 is Rochelle Jackson resigns as food service worker. Sharon Whitson is hired as secondary PE/health teacher. Katie Klingen-Smith is hired as agriculture teacher and FFA sponsor. Brandy Moa-Lamp is hired as assistant softball coach. Heather Wells is hired as technology coordinator. Stephanie Good is hired as instructional coach. Geez, why can't I say that? Stephanie Brown is hired as instructional coach. Caitlin Grant, internal transfer to 4th grade teaching position. And Stephanie Remenga is hired as elementary/middle school special education teacher and middle school volleyball coach. Any discussion or questions on the consent agenda items?
So you have a science opening then?
I do.
Are you interested, Cindy?
No.
Okay.
Just
Do you know of somebody that is interested? Because I know a guy that can help him.
I'll leave it to you and the guy.
No, I am the guy that can help the person that you know.
All right. If no questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items.
I would second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda items. minus number 1 under hires and resignations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, items for discussion. Tentative agreement with Interstate 35 district support staff.
So maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we opened with our support staff and had some great conversations. Yeah, so what came from it is a 50-cent an hour increase, which is about a 3.8% increase. The total cost of that will be about $37,000. The other thing that came out of that conversation was the discussion of a fair living wage. I think that kind of has taken the forefront as a result of conversation about minimum wage and what that looks like if that goes to $15 an hour, and if we should get there, you know, and how does that, or what does that look like? And they also asked us to consider raising the cash in lieu incentive payment to members who do not opt for the insurance. So those are things that we're going to work through the Labor Management Committee with, and then bring some recommendations to you from that group. So those are all things that we'll work through with them. So what we're asking for is the agreement of the 50-cent an hour increase for this year, with the awareness that we're going to do the fair living wage discussion and the conversation about cash in lieu.
Discussion or questions? All right. I would entertain a motion on the tentative agreement with the district support staff.
I move to approve
I would move that we
tentative.
approve the tentative agreement that has been agreed. I would move that we approve the agreement between the 35 school district and the support staff.
I would second that.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the tentative agreement with the Interstate 35 Educational Support Employees Association. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Insurance Committee recommendations, and I'm hoping you weren't relying on Eddie on this one.
Well, no, I don't think I can do this one too. But, it would have been nice for him to be here. But the Insurance Committee looked again this year at some of the different options. Ultimately, the goal is to provide high-quality insurance to our employees, something that's manageable by the district, but also kind of competitive. And resoundingly, we're told time and time again that our plan is really solid. And I think that's years of negotiation from the different groups, so that should be commended. The recommendation, though, this year is that we move from 2 plans to 1 plan by the Insurance Committee. The changes in that would allow for us to keep our increase to about 0. I think it was either -1 or 1%, or -0.01 or
Minus
-1.
0.1%.
-0.1%, thank you. So I did need
It's
to.
almost a 0.
Yeah, it's almost a 0. So the tweaks include the co-insurance for in-network and out-of-network. Right now they're at 90-10 for in-network, and the recommendation is moved that to 80-20. Out-of-network right now is 70-30 or 80-20 depending on the plan. So moving that to 70-30 in the new plan. Obviously, when you offer one plan, you're not offering the opportunity to select against the plan. So you don't have all your healthy people on one plan and all your ill people or family members on another plan. So the idea is you pool that together and hopefully eliminate that kind of push-pull between multiple plans. So that recommendation came from the Insurance Committee. The group came up and wanted to make sure we knew, and that I communicated that they have a I want to say it's a book of business. I think that's the easiest way to think about it, where they look at plans across the country, they look at plans across the state, they look at plans for schools, and we're still better in several benchmark areas, even with the recommended changes. And that includes our deductible, our out-of-pocket maximums, our office visit copays, and our prescription drug copays. So the committee feels, I think, pretty good about where we are and the recommendation they're making. The other thing that they want to recommend is that the board consider having a group or an amount allocated to the Healthy Living program. That's the one that we talked about, Naturally Slim, where you can participate, you get coached for a year. If you're successful and you reduce all those factors that lead to illness in future years, then the district pays $595 for the program. It has a 40% success rate, which, you know, if we get 4 out of 10 people in a really healthy place, that really benefits the district. They did not come up with a number to recommend that you support that with, but they asked that you consider something. Either every year we just contribute something to that, or every other year, whatever, if you're so inclined. So those are the 2 recommendations from the insurance committee.
So the district gets $595 for each individual, or
They pay.
They pay the district?
No, we pay the program.
Oh.
If the individual is successful. So if we have 10 people on the program and 4 of them are successful, we pay 4 times $595 for that program. If they're not successful, we don't pay anything.
And is this a year after year thing? If somebody's successful one year, can they re-enroll?
Well, once they're successful, then they don't have the indicators that would make them eligible for the next year.
Okay. So somebody has to be eligible to actually be able to
Yes.
hit this?
Yes. If you're already at a healthy lifestyle and you already make great choices and you don't have any of the markers, then you can't enroll in the program.
Is there an incentive for the person to do this if they as far as are successful? I mean, to give the $595 as an HSA to the individual?
Well, we have to give the $595 to the company that works them through it.
Right.
If they're not successful, the employee pays it?
Nobody pays.
There's no charge.
There's no charge. So the only time the district would have to pay is if an employee became healthy. To meet all the markers.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying. We have not talked about that. I would assume if the board wants to consider something like that, they could. I don't know what it would be. I think that their idea is the incentive is just being healthy.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you...
Originally, we talked about doing like a pilot.
Right.
Right. But so the Naturally Slim, that program basically says if we don't get you there, you don't pay us anything.
Correct.
But if we get you there, you have to pay us the $600.
Right.
So we're on the hook for that if they get there.
Right.
We're not on the hook for anything if they don't.
Correct.
And the committee was even just talking about trying it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they were worried about having everybody want to sign up on the first go around.
Yeah.
So how would they choose who would be? Because I
We
think
decided we'd kind of let the company do it, right?
yeah, whoever has maybe the biggest factors or the greatest, you know, opportunity, I don't know. But they would like you to consider allocating money for that, because obviously we can't do it unless you approve of that, so. And how much would you want to allocate annually for something like that?
I'd like the insurance company to recommend how many.
What's that?
I'd like the insurance committee to recommend.
Oh. Well, we talked about 10 would be our recommendation, so maybe $2,000. If you figure 40%, if you're going by their averages. But if we allow 10, then we have to be willing to go with $6,950 if, you know, or $5,950 if everyone was successful.
Yep. And that incentive for a program would be paid out of the same fund as our insurance, as our health insurance?
It'd be out of the general fund.
That's all out of the general fund. Okay. Anybody have any feelings about this?
Do you see that there would be a lot of participation in this? Just from, I'm just throwing this out is because, I mean, from, you know, from a workplace standpoint, how my company does it is the incentive for that individual to do the work is so that they know that, okay, if I do all these things, get my blood level down, cholesterol, da-da-da, then I know at the end of all that, I'm going to get $500 that goes directly into my HSA so I can use towards, you know, medical costs, prescription, whatever it is. I mean, that is a great incentive for that person to do that because it affects them personally. So by us, if they're successful, I mean, we're, as a district, we're just paying this company to manage.
That's the recommendation for the insurance committee, yeah.
And that's how the program's set up.
Right.
That's how.
And I don't know, I can send an email to Kathy from the group and just ask if other schools or other businesses, I mean, I'm similar to you, places I've worked, they've had the incentive program to actually participate and do it and be successful, because then I mean, you know, you get whatever off your insurance sometimes, you know, you get to take $50 off your insurance, whatever it is. So we can ask her if there's something out there like that. We just wanted to try it, see if we would have enough people that were interested. From the sounds of it, I think it will go over. I think if people, you know, I see people walking in the morning, I see people on the treadmills in the afternoon. I mean, and this is about education. This is about teaching people, you know, it's not just the exercise piece, it's all of these components to reduce stress. And so it's like a class, a year-long class on education about kind of all those habits for health. So
how many employees would be eligible for this? Just round number, don't give me an exact number. Is this 100?
Yeah, I don't know that we know, but I would say
no, I'm not saying based on
well
health.
Over 70 or 80 would
I'm
be
not saying
eligible.
based on health risks. I'm just saying based on the people that get insurance, because it would only be the people that we provide health insurance to, correct? Or not?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It can be any employee.
So number of employees is approximately 135.
And if you look at the factors for what they consider somebody who's eligible, it's blood pressure, it's weight, it's...
That's why you almost need to limit it to try it to see where we end up, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can't do everybody. I mean, I guess you could, but you'd have to put a lot of money.
For discussion purposes with the group, I guess I would be open to doing 10 or even 15. I guess. Anybody else have any thoughts about this? Of capping it at that for the first year to see what?
I'm fine with
I
that.
think capping it at 10 would be a good start.
Okay.
But I'd also like to explore the other option, seeing how, you know, if there's the other way of an incentive for the individual itself.
Well, I think that would be an addition too, but we can definitely do that.
Yep.
I mean, obviously for the district, it pays out in less sick days and, you know what I mean, less insurance costs and all of those things. So we're going to benefit from it if our employees get healthy anyway. They're going to have more energy in the classroom. They're going to be better at home. You know, I mean, just a lot of those benefits. So
Be in the classroom more, not sick as much, not out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion. Probably need to specify in the motion what we are planning on allocating to this program, whether it's a count or a dollar value.
Okay. I move to approve the recommendation by the insurance committee to move to one insurance plan and make the minor changes with the plan well, this has allocating money. but we talked about up to 10 participants for this next year as a pilot program. And then also look into the incentive of individual as a health and wellness.
And that we would bring back to the board before you.
Yes, and bring that back to
Yep.
Yeah, before we indicated what that could possibly be.
But this would be an approval to move
Yes.
forward.
So it's okay to put 5950, which is 10 of them.
A maximum of, or 10 individuals.
Max.
Yeah.
Yes, max.
So Sarah and Jeremy, did you hear that motion?
So there's an addition of the incentive per individual.
Look into an incentive for individuals.
Not yet.
We're gonna,
We're going to look into
Look
that,
into
Sarah.
it,
There's
but it's-
not one in the motion right now. It's just to look into it and bring something to the board as a possibility.
Okay. All right. Then I would second that motion.
So,
Oh, Jeremy, did you?
no, I was just saying, is the individual incentive, is that part of the motion then at this point? Or is that something you're gonna look into and circle back with us on from there?
Yeah, that's part of they're going to circle back and find out what that possibility looks like and bring that piece back. So it's not necessarily part of the motion. Right?
and it's, yes, and it's not holding up the action that we're gonna
Correct.
take.
Correct.
It would be an add-on that we would vote on later.
The motion is for the 10 individuals, or the 5950, if I have that dollar amount right,
Yep.
to move forward.
I would second that motion then with 5950 and individual at this time.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the recommendations by the insurance committee to move to one insurance plan and to make minor changes within the plan and allocate up to $59.50 for 10 people to participate in the Naturally Slim program. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 101% budget guarantee resolution, again.
I call the rest of this the TED show, so Ted and Keegan. Do you want to talk about the 101%? That's why I called it the TED show.
The 101% budget guarantee resolution will ensure that the district can levy for a maximum, this amount is what it's going to amount to, approximately $168,848, which will guarantee that we receive as much funding in FY22 as we received it in the current year, FY21, because of our loss in enrollment in October of 2020.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on that?
Any questions or discussion on that?
You said this amount was the same as last year?
Well, because we had a loss in enrollment of 36 students in our certified enrollment, that affects, if they didn't give us the 101% guarantee, we would actually reduce, our revenue would go down. And we'd have to make cuts right away, or adjustments. And this allows us one more year to see what our enrollment does in October of 2021.
Or be ready to make adjustments as needed.
Right.
Right, okay.
It's your one grace year, basically,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And it's 101% of previous year's budget, right?
Right. Exactly. Well said.
Other questions or discussions?
So I actually need you to read the resolution there,
Okay.
and then that would be the
And this is
motion.
something that they recommend districts pass every year,
Yep.
just to make sure that you have it.
So I would entertain a motion on the 101% budget guarantee resolution. Resolved that the Board of Directors of Interstate 35 Community School District will levy property taxes for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 for the regular program budget adjustment as allowed under section 257.14 Code of Iowa.
I move to approve the budget adjustment resolution.
I don't know if they heard.
Do we have a second for that?
I
Sarah?
can second that.
Okay, Sarah?
It has been properly moved and seconded for the 101% budget guarantee resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Jeremy?
He may not be there.
Okay.
I mean, he's there, but he may not be at his computer.
So
All those-
passes 3-0.
Opposed?
Sorry.
Yeah, 3-0.
Resolution passes.
I would make sure you know who the three are, just because it's an ad.
Right.
All right, next one is the audit that Ted has politely given us.
So everybody, you received the audit, I think on Friday through PDF. I'll just kind of quickly go through this. It was a good audit, I think. We received a clean opinion, which is an unmodified opinion, which is the best of the four. One common finding is mainly due to because of segregation of duties. Because of our size, we've gotten that every year. It's not uncommon. And that's just because of the size of our office. No instances of non-compliance, no questionable expenditures. Those expenditures that the auditor believed may not meet the requirements of public purpose. The certified annual report was timely filed to the Iowa Department of Education in September. And we will post the complete audit on our website, and it will be on the state auditor's website. Do any of you have questions on that? I know it's a lot of information.
Great job to both of you in keeping us fiscally sound and on track, and I mean, that's a huge task, so thank you for being fiscally responsible.
Thank you. We
For
appreciate
sure.
people that work in our offices too.
Yes. It leaves us something we don't have to worry a whole lot about. I'm sure you do, Ted. But-
I never worry.
Okay.
What'd you just say?
Did you just say you never worries?
Luckily, that's on recording.
Oh.
It's never true.
All right.
Thank you, though.
Yep. Any questions or comments on the audit? Entertain a motion to, I assume we're approving the audit, Ted?
Yes.
To approve the audit for fiscal year 20.
I'll move to approve the fiscal year 20 audit.
Okay, Cindy? I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, Jeremy?
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2020 audit. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All those opposed? All right. It is approved. Next item is the fiscal year 2022 certified budget. Ted?
Yes, so been hearing about this. The proposed budget was published, as Sharon said, at 18.8. We anticipate that when John Parker from the Department of Management sends that out in June, that you'll want us to bring that back down to the 18.67, which has been our current number. And we'll adjust that down. We published it higher just so that Because if you publish it too low, you can't go up, but you can come down. That's just state law.
Okay.
So that's why we build it up high enough that it'll stay the same.
Any questions on the fiscal year 22 certified budget? I'd entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 22 certified budget.
I make the motion to approve the fiscal year 22 certified budget.
Sarah?
Yes.
I'll second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the fiscal year 2022 certified budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Budget is approved. Resolution for debt service payment.
So this is the same process we used last year. Keeping our budget at the same tax rate, we're able to allocate a payment toward our general obligation bond. So this is, I think, a great graphic of what that looks like. So this is obviously for our building and improvement project. It's a $9.2 million bond. And if you look here, we're talking about our payments that would have been made in 2036, 2035, so 2 years worth. But I think more important on this side over here, by making this payment now, we're going to save the district $191,000. Combined with what we did last year, it's going to save the close to $400,000 or a little over $400,000 on this bond. And so I think as a group, we kind of talked about if we can still maintain our tax rate and make sure we're still funding all of our other areas, that this is something that we wanted to continue to do. So this is the same proposal that we had last year to pay down some of that general obligation bond on the backside to save our taxpayers money in the long run. And we see that already happening. We pay $1 million and we save close to $400,000 over 2 years. I think that's a pretty sound fiscal decision. So.
Well, I mean, I remember the discussions from last year, and yeah, it's hard to argue with the numbers and how much we're saving.
We don't see it right away.
No, but
I think future planning will be very important for things like this. So.
Anybody have questions? Okay.
And again, I'll need somebody to read that resolution.
All right, I will read it. I'd entertain a motion for the resolution authorizing the redemption of the general obligation school bonds series 2017 dated July 25th, 2017, approving a First Amendment to escrow agent agreement and levying a tax for fiscal year 2022 for the redemption of the general obligation school bonds series 2017 dated July 25th, 2017.
I'll move to approve the resolution for debt service payment.
I would second that, Sarah.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution for debt service payment. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The resolution passes. So, Mr. Smith, you are second to last. Are you sure you don't want us to do that one item before you?
No.
Are you sure?
We sure can. But I promise it won't be anything as lengthy as Steve. So. I did provide for you kind of the goals that guide our special education program, not in any particular order, starting with, I think the most important one that drives us is ensuring that our students are provided free and appropriate public education. And we do this by maintaining constant efforts towards continued staff professional development. I hold monthly special ed meetings with our AEA reps that we go over any current educational trends or educational issues, some case laws involved with that. You know, if there's a big case of the state that we want to make sure that, you know, we're practicing, we have best practice. You know, we review some of that. Ensuring compliance with state and federal regulations regarding student annual IEPs, reevals, and periodic program updates. And then number 4 on the list is one that we are currently working through right now, is providing students with specially designed instruction through research-based programs and strategies to ensure consistent progress. So what we're doing right now in our last special ed meeting is we developed a Google form that we put out to our special education teachers that kind of just an inventory of what programs and what progress monitoring we are currently using K through 12 in our district. I just kind of wanted to see what we have, what we have research based. Is it up to date? Because I do know, I mean, there are some programs out there that I think have been around a while and we have better options that we could use. And if there are any areas where, you know, our teachers say, you know, I really don't have anything right now, we're just kind of teaching to each subject with really not any research-based program. So we'll take that data. We just put that survey out, and I seen that all the teachers had responded. So I'm working with Susie Bentley she's the regional director of Heartland AEA, and working with her through that to see kind of where we need to go with our specially designed instruction and with our assessment tools, which kind of aligns with where we're at professional developmentally throughout the district of making sure we have quality assessments. So the next step with that would be we have implemented or started training on Read 180 and System 44, and that's mainly 5 through 12. Read 180 is more of a Tier 2 intervention, and this is for reading. It touches mostly on fluency and comprehension, where the System 44 is more of a beginner reading program, more phonics. So with those programs, we can identify students through a screener, and that program will place them within whichever skills they're lacking, and then that program takes them through until, you know, if they're in System 44, it'll take them through System 44, and then we can take them through Read 180 again to close that gap with their peers. So to tie it all in with the inventory that we're doing is our next step will be to, we've got, 8 weeks of school left. We're going to get some students to that screener and kind of try a case study with a few of our students. We have told each teacher, you know, pick a student that you think would benefit from this. We'll take them through this, and then along the way, we will have them meet with the AEA to go through and really look at that data and to see if it is closing that gap with their peers. And then if it is, or if it isn't, then we can adjust our instruction accordingly. And then when we get into next year, you know, we kind of start rolling it out to more students. So that's where we are with that. One thing we're really excited about is I'm working with our paras and associates to develop a mentoring system for them. One thing that is a challenge, which is a little different than when we hire teachers. You know, all the teachers come in mostly at the beginning of the year, because, you know, really we often don't hire teachers mid-year. Associates are a little different than that. You know, we have associates that come and go within the middle of the year, so we've never really had a process for onboarding them and making sure they're caught up with just everyday procedures or practices at the school. And we have a mentoring program for the teachers, just not for the associates. So we're kind of building that program from scratch. Kind of wanted to mirror what that looks like with the teachers, having, you know, monthly or bi-monthly check-ins with their mentor, the mentee, and then the mentor director. So that's just newly in the works. We met one time for it, and we're just kind of going to try to have that ready for next year. I really think that'll help us with some retention on some associates and just making them feel more comfortable in the district. Because honestly, right now it seems like, we hire a new associate, then it's just kind of like, if it's mid-March, just here, go to your student, we'll kind of catch you up as we go. And it really doesn't set them up for as much success as we would if we had a system for mentoring them through that. And then I provided the special education professional development plan that we're using for this year.
It's not linked. You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. Whoops.
How many are in your department, in the special education department?
Students or staff?
No, staff.
We have 8.5 special education teachers. That also includes Jenny Dickinson, who is the preschool teacher, so with that she covers the special ed students in that.
Is she the half or is she a full?
I didn't count her as the half. We have one half in the elementary. So Becky Porter was half special education, half reading interventionist.
Okay.
So these are what we kind of covered so far this year. And I'll run through them real quick. Some of it's pretty deep conversation, but page I is a new page in the IEP system that came because of COVID. It allows us to keep the IEP in place as it is written for a normal full day of school. Page I is there so that we can summarize how we're going to meet that student's needs if they were to be quarantined or if they choose to go remote or hybrid. Just gives us flexibility because we do know that if it's written for a full day of school, that's not what it's going to look like if that student's at home. It'll say 44 minutes of reading, 44 minutes of math, 44 minutes of writing. And sometimes that's not realistic, being at home, sitting on a Zoom call. So we use that page I to give us some flexibility if they do have to go remote, but then the IEP stays in place if they come back. CAF statements is a current academic performance and functional performance. That kind of just states how the student is doing compared to their peers. We worked through that with the special ed teachers in October. 103B and the other is just legislation for restraint and room clears, just making sure that we're up to date on that. Really, we don't have, luckily for us, many situations where we have to deal with that, but keeping the teachers up to base with that. And then I already touched on the review of the set assessment that we have. Moving forward, there will be a new IEP system being rolled out in June. So just getting the teachers signed up and myself signed up for training with that this summer so that we can be ready to go in the fall.
When you say it's a new system, is that software or is that a different structure on how you build the IEP?
Just so right now the IDEA is a website and of how we structure the IEP online. Previously it hasn't been since I have been in special education, but it was just paper copy and you handwrite it. Then they put it online, and since then it's changed one time. It hasn't changed since I've been in the special education world for 7 years. So this will be the first time it's changed. So they're redoing the whole system. They really haven't given much guidance what that looks like, unfortunately. But hopefully that is an easy transition. Last time they did it, I was lucky and I was a new first-year teacher. So that was like, oh, this is all I know. But talking to the teachers that taught with both systems, it wasn't an easy transition. So hoping it stays that way.
Sounds like a fun summer. Is there anything else? That's it? Anybody have any questions? Thanks for staying late. All right. Last item on the agenda is the roof bid.
So this one, I'm not sure really, we need to replace roads. I think that needs to be part of our general cycle. My challenge is we have 2 roof bids, one from Academy Roofing and one from Bailey, but they don't exactly mirror each other. So I asked Rick for clarification and make sure that he tells me which one is the less cost, because one of them has broken it down into sections, the other one has it for the whole process, one it has extra costs if you want them to remove stuff, and the other one is if you just do the whole project. So it's a little difficult to read the way they have these bids, and Rick and I have talked about that. And his recommendation is that we go with Bailey Roofing and their bid, and this would replace over the multi-purpose / wrestling room and the locker rooms on the northwest side of the south part of the I.
The ones north of the hallway.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, north of the hallway.
Okay.
So that's what the bid is for. It's about $104,000 to do both of those sections.
And that was next on your priority list, is that you kind of said?
It's on a continued priority list, yes. Yeah. I think we need to do roofing each year. Mm-hmm. Next year is a big one. We need to do this section here, so it'll be $400,000 to $500,000 probably. But I don't know how, I mean, we can't continue to have damage to the things we're just putting in new. You know, we just bought a new wrestling mat for what, $10,000 or $20,000 a couple years ago, and now we're gonna, you know, I mean, we just gotta take care of our building. So this is on an ongoing, it's like the air conditioning, it's on an ongoing until that gets completed. I think we're always gonna have some kind of roofing that we'll have to address. In this case, it's just that area for this year.
So we have this 104 plan?
Yes.
Other questions or comments on the roofing?
That's SAVE or PEPL. I mean, you're taking, that's allocated in SAVE or PEPL.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So your recommendation is to approve the Bailey Roofing Contractors bid?
Yes, and I'm just gonna verify with Rick one more time, because if you look at the Academy, it's tough because of the way they've written it. So they have 60,000 plus 26,000 plus 80 per hour plus, you know, so when you look at, he said Bailey is the better bid.
Okay.
So, and he's worked with them before. So I can get an exact number of this for you to see if it's truly the lower bid, but I think Rick has computed it and said, yes, Bailey is the lower bid.
So are you looking for an approval based on the lowest bid then?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's how we have to grant projects,
okay. So we shouldn't specify one
right,
in our motion.
Yeah, once the lowest bid is verified.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy, we shouldn't specify a contractor in our motion. If you choose to do a motion, it should be the lowest bid.
Is that correct? Okay.
Are you wanting a motion?
We'll be right back next week.
I would definitely entertain a motion on the roof bid, Cindy.
Okay, so I will move to approve the roof bid that has the lowest bid. Right?
Yeah.
Period.
Are they doing something?
Sarah's there.
I second that.
There we go. It's been moved and seconded to approve the roof bid based on the lowest bid that has been received to date. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes.
One thing to add before you adjourn.
Yes.
While you're all here. We met with the teaching staff today and got a tentative agreement on their contract. So we'd like to tell them tomorrow if the board is in favor. And then we'd like to have a special meeting either Monday or Tuesday of next week. It can be a call-in just to approve it. They're going to take it to their teachers this week and get us their agreement by the end of the week. So if we can approve that, that helps us get contracts printed, get everything ready to go for next year. The sooner we work through that process, I think the more certainty our teachers feel, the safer they feel about the process. And so we'd ask that you maybe look at your calendars and see if there's a day, Monday or Tuesday next week, to maybe meet for a phone conference meeting to approve that.
Tuesday works better for me.
Tuesday?
I'll just say right now that I will be home next week, so I don't have anything planned.
Okay.
Other than.
I'm hit or miss on Tuesday, but
Is there a good time for you on Tuesday?
earlier in the morning, the better.
So can we do like a 7?
I could do 7 or 8, and that'd be fine, actually. So whatever you guys want. I can't do over lunch, and I can't do later in the day.
Okay, so would 7 o'clock on Tuesday work for Jeremy? Yes, I understood. Sarah, will that work for you?
Yes.
So can you add that to the upcoming the upcoming meetings?
Yep. Tuesday.
That's a virtual, that's a
Yeah, I'll just send out a link.
virtual.
I mean, you can come into the
Okay.
district office if you want to, but I can just send out a link.
All right.
That'll be the only thing on the agenda as I know it.
Okay. Good now?
Yeah, very good.
All right, next meeting will be a special board meeting on Tuesday, the 30th of March at 7 a.m. It will be a remote meeting. Then the next regular scheduled board meeting will be Monday, April 26th at 6 p.m. And graduation is scheduled for May 23rd at 2 p.m. with a board meeting the day after, if I remember right. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Can you tell
Opposed.
Jeremy not to get off of there yet?
Hey, Jeremy, don't get off here yet.
Okay.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much, Roger.